Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, when you finish sewing your zipper in, you need to go ahead and zip it shut and just check and see that basically your top ends match on both sides. A tiny bit off here. This one's a little bit shorter, but that will be folded under in the seam allowance, and so it won't show. So then you need to turn your gym bag wrong side out. So flip it around so that the wrong side is to the outside. And we need to put pins on the round edge, or the outside edge of the round end, and also on the ends of the gym bag so that we can attach them equally. So what's going to happen is you're going to fold your pocket in half, and you're going to take pins, and these are marking pins. You're not going through the fabric, but you're just marking the ends. So I go in a little bit at the very edge and right back out, and that marks my 12 o'clock pin. Then I come over to the other end and I put in a 6 o'clock marking pin. And again, I fold it in half, but I'm not going through it. I'm just marking that end spot and put the pin like that. Then I open it up and I fold the 12 o'clock pin and the 6 o'clock pin to match each other exactly, and come over and put a 3 o'clock marking pin, coming right back out, and a 9 o'clock marking pin. This is also one other place where it will be to your benefit to be precise so that you don't have any problems when you sew the round ends in. Now I want the midpoints of those 4 pins, 130, 430, 730, and 1030, if you think like an analog clock, and put in 4 more midpoint marking pins for a total of 8 pins. And make sure that the pins match exactly before you mark those midpoints. And once you have 8 pins in your round end, it should look like this. We're going to go with this one. Okay, now you need to put pins also on your gym bag. So on the wrong side out, the 12 o'clock pin would match to where the top of the zipper is, but of course you can't put a pin there. So you're going to fold it down and find your 6 o'clock spot and take a pin and put a marking pin right in that edge. Just go in and out right on the end a little bit. Open up your gym bag and match that 6 o'clock pin to the center of the zipper, and then put your 3 o'clock and your 9 o'clock pins on these ends right here. And then come over and find the 9 o'clock spot, going in and right out. Now you need marking or matching midpoint pins. So you're going to get the 12 o'clock and the 3 o'clock zipper and pin together, and then come straight out and match the, here's your 130 pin, then take your 3 o'clock pin, match it to your 6 o'clock pin to get it to the 430 marking point. And then your 6 o'clock pin and your 9 o'clock pin to get 730. Match the pins exactly. Aim to be precise. And then put 1 more pin between the 12 o'clock pin and the 9 o'clock pin, and you'll have 7 pins plus the zipper point. And that was a little tricky, but you want to aim to be as precise as possible. Okay, once you have the pins marked with the right sides together, so I'm going to look at the round end, and this is the right side, and I want it to go to the inside there, so I'm going to choose this blue pin to be my 12 o'clock pin. And I'm going to match that point to where the center of the zipper matches. You can see it right there. But I want the outside edges to match. I'm actually going to move that blue pin slightly over to the right, and I'm going to go through the zipper tab and the fabric and put the pin in there, pinning both the gym bag and the round end together. I'm going to come back to the other side of the 12 o'clock pin, and I'm going to put one more pin, again matching the edges of the fabric together and going through the zipper tab and the round end. And then I'm going to actually come inside from the other end, and I'm going to unzip the zipper about halfway, so that way you don't have to worry about sewing the zipper closed. Then you're going to go around the circle of your gym bag, and each pin is going to match to the corresponding pin on the gym bag. So take one pin out and take the other pin and go through both layers. Take the pin that you took out, and you want to, there will be a gap here when you're putting a round edge onto a straight edge. It won't fit perfect, and so this is called easing. And you want to put some of the gap on the left side, some on the right side, but take the pin and pin it in the middle. And so as you sew it, you're going to have to ease it in to fit a little bit. But as you pin it, just go around. And again, match the two pins precisely. Take one pin out and put the other pin through both layers. And then go around the circle. And I put both fingers in, and I just find a little gap here and a little gap here, and put the pin in the middle to make it easy when you sew. And you repeat that all the way around the gym bag. And find the gaps and match the edges of the fabric together and put it through. Two pins together, one pin in there. Sometimes it may match exactly, and sometimes you may have bigger gaps, but you want to have your gaps evenly spaced all the way around. And if you've pinned precisely, that should work out pretty smoothly for you. But it is true that this is the hardest part of the gym bag for most students, so if it doesn't go well the first time, sometimes you can take it out and do it over. We hope that doesn't happen. Okay, here is a little bit bigger gap, but I just kind of flatten so that it's on both sides. Pin in the middle. Okay. Okay, and in that last space, when you come around to the end, just take an extra pin. Toss the head on it. And put it in. Okay, and when you get ready to sew, you're going to come to your machine, and let's just make sure everything is in here like it needs to be. You need to switch back to the regular presser foot after you've got the zipper foot finished. Just lower it over that bar in the middle and lift it up, and it's in position. When you start sewing, you want to start about 2 pins before the zipper, and then you're basically going to be stitching with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So I just come to that pin and put it right in so that it goes over to this seam allowance there, and then put the presser foot down and put the needle down, and let's get it to stay in the down position. Now, what you need to do at this point, with the presser foot up, you need to take your finger and feel the fabric from the needle to the next pin. If it is smooth, you can just sew it. But if there's a bubble, and here there's a slight gap, then you need to ease it. And the way that you ease it is you take this top layer of the round end and you stretch it over the bottom edge of the gym bag. And so I'm stretching it over a little bit so that when I'm sewing, I can feel the smooth, that there's no gaps or fabric being sewn on. And as I sew, it's actually going to come a little bit beyond 1.5, even close to the 2 centimeter line. So then I sew from the beginning to the pin, and I stop just before every pin. Then this is important. The procedure, you lift up the presser foot, I'm going to get that out of the way, and you take out the first pin. Then you check, and there's a bubble here, so you're going to need to ease again. So I'm going to sew, stretching this out almost to the 2 centimeter line, and I just feel from the needle to the pin. The other thing that's important to do is make sure that this zipper and the other fabric on the bottom doesn't get caught underneath. So always push it to the left with your hand on the bottom, and then feel it, and if it's smooth you can sew, if it's not you need to ease it out, and then sew up to the next pin. And when you get to the next pin, you should be at the zipper, so I'm going to stop right at the red pin and put it down. Okay, so as I stop here, now this space between the red pin and the blue pin is the zipper. So this time you need to use the hand wheel to walk across the zipper. So I'm going to be not using the foot pedal but the hand wheel on the right, and I'm just going to walk it all the way over to the blue pin on the other side, so that if the needle were to strike the zipper, if you're doing it by hand, you can control it. If you have it with the foot pedal, the tip of the needle can break off and it could hit you in the eye, so please be safe and remember to use it with the hand wheel. When you get to the next pin, you're past the zipper, so then you can lift it up and again follow the procedure. Smooth it to the bottom layer to the left, take the top pin out and feel from pin to needle, and if it's smooth this time, it happens to be smooth, and you can just sew right at the 1.5 centimeter seam allowance right up to the next pin. Stop before every pin and then smooth it out. And here this one has a bigger bubble, so you're going to need to ease it, so I'm going to stretch to the right to do that easing, and you can see it's kind of pulling over and it's almost to the 2 centimeter line, but the bottom layer is still at 1.5 centimeters, so then you just keep sewing. And stopping at every pin. Lift it up, take out the pin, smooth it, and then stretch if you need to make it smooth, and you're ready to go. And it's also helpful to turn the bag periodically. If you kind of have it up in this shape like that, it makes it easier to put in. Then just feel, I need to take this pin out and make sure that there's no gap. There's a slight gap, so it needs to be eased. Do be careful, you don't really want to be going too much past the 2 centimeter line. 2.5 centimeters would be the absolute deepest you should sew. If you sew any deeper than 2.5 centimeters, you're actually going to make the size of your gym bag smaller. So aim to be careful about that. Try to avoid tucks when the fabric gets folded over and stitched across. And then if you do it following this method, you shouldn't have any problem. Turning it around as I go. Smoothing, stretching. Oops, press it down. needs to be stretched a little more. Stretch it out. Okay, and then when you get to the end, you want to just overlap where you've sewn. And because this seam gets a lot of pressure, you need to stitch around it a second time. So once you've come around once, then you stitch a second time, and you need to be careful that you walk it across that part where the zipper is. So I'm going to just put a pin to mark, here's where the zipper begins, and here's where it ends, so that I know that in this space I have to walk it by hand. And then you just sew right on top of where you sewed the first time. And just remember, occasionally you need to push it around. And then here I'm at the zipper, so I need to walk it by hand. And when you get up close to the second pin, you can stop. And now you can just stitch around till the end. And when you get back to where you started, you can just overlap a few stitches, and then you'll be done. And this second row of stitching gives it good reinforcement so that when you put heavy things in your gym bag, it won't rip out. Okay, and I can see that I'm coming back to the end, so I just and once I get to the end, I just go a little bit further than where I started, just a tiny bit of overlap, and then I push my needle up and lift it up and pull it out. And you'll do the exact same procedure to put your gym bag end on the other end as well. Okay, and trim the bobbin thread and the and then once you've finished sewing 2 times around both ends, then you can turn your gym bag right side out and just check that you hopefully will have minimal tucks. This is an example of a tuck. You hope that you don't have very many of those, but that does happen sometimes. And then zip it shut. And hopefully you won't have a hole at the end of your zipper, and that's what a gym bag that meets standard will look like. And there you go.